In our last video, we covered the best-known female Soviet air unit, the Night Witches of the 588th Night Bomber Regiment. But there were two other all-female, or at least mostly female Soviet air units that also deserve recognition for their contributions to the air war on the Eastern Front. The first female air unit to actually see combat was the 586 Fighter Aviation Regiment. The female pilots of this regiment were ordered to protect cities, air bases, and other key targets from German bombers. In other words, they had to shoot down enemy aircraft, and that's exactly what they did. Starting in April 1942, the regiment's pilots flew over 4,400 combat missions, and claimed to have shot down 38 German aircraft. Several of the regiment's female pilots were so good they were even sent to elite units, like the 9th Guards Fighter Regiment, to fly alongside the best male fighter pilots in the Soviet Union. Two of these female pilots, Katya Budanova and Lilia Litvak, even became aces, each shooting down at least 5 German aircraft. But sadly, both were killed before the war ended. All in all, 13 female fighter pilots from the 586 and other regiments would lose their lives in World War II. And yet others would survive incredible dangers. At least one female fighter pilot bailed out of a burning aircraft and survived. Others took their damaged aircraft back to base and belly landed them, risking their lives to save their aircraft rather than jumping out and use their parachutes. They knew their unit didn't have enough fighters, and they were willing to risk everything to bring that aircraft back to base, no matter the cost. The last mostly female Soviet air unit was a bomber unit, the 587th Bomber Regiment. Unlike the other mostly female regiments, which were given obsolete or obsolescent aircraft, the 587th got one of the most advanced aircraft the Soviet Union had to offer at the start of World War II. They flew the Pe-2, an aircraft better known to her crews as the Peshka. The Peshka was a beloved but challenging aircraft to fly. It was fast, maneuverable, and could easily crash if the pilot made just one mistake. One veteran pilot rightly called it a strict aircraft. Another pilot, Evgenia Gorlieva-Simova, recalled its landing speed was quite fast, and that contributed to a number of crashes. And the female and male pilots and crews of the 587th also had a challenging mission. They flew daylight bombing missions. They didn't have the cover of night to hide them. And once they got to their targets, they were sometimes expected to fly dive bombing runs on their targets. Female pilots zoomed towards the ground at speeds of up to 400 kilometers an hour, dropped their bombs, and then pulled up at the last possible moment, enduring 2, 3, or even 4 times the force of gravity as they pulled up as hard as they could. All the while, German flak and fighters were a constant threat. But there were other dangers as well. Bad weather, accidents, and mechanical failure also claimed lives. The 587th flew over 1,100 combat missions and dropped nearly 89,000 kilograms of bombs on German forces during the war. But to do this, they paid a heavy price. 22 men and women lost their lives flying together in the 587th. One of them was Marina Ryskova, the woman who had done so much to get Soviet women in the cockpit. She died when her Peshka crashed in a storm outside Stalingrad. Every regiment of Soviet female pilots also had dozens of women who did backbreaking work on the ground. Female mechanics, engineers, and support staff worked alongside men to keep the aircraft working. They patched up battle damage, fixed broken parts, and loaded planes with bombs and ammunition. And they did it in some of the worst conditions imaginable. They spent freezing winters in tents. They waded through ankle-deep mud. They endured German air raids with nothing more than shallow trenches for protection. And they worked almost constantly, day after day, month after month, for nearly 3 years of the war. The legacy of the Night Witches and the other Soviet female pilots would be complicated after the war ended. On one hand, they were treated as national heroes. But on the other hand, the Soviet Union walked back the quiet steps it had taken toward equality during the war years. After the war ended, the Soviet Air Force stopped recruiting and training new female pilots. Indeed, it wouldn't be until the 1990s that women would once again fly in combat. But that's another story for another time.